temptation. Barbara Jean arrived the next morning like a whirlwind of ruffles and enthusiasm. She was carrying a stack of magazines and a paint fan that was 90% neon. "Reba, honey, I have it," she squealed, hugging Reba and leaving a faint scent of lavender and desperation on her work shirt. "The friendly Texas aesthetic. We're going to make this house feel like a warm hug from a neighbor you actually like," Barbara Jean Reba said slowly, trying to maintain her sanity. "This is a flip. It needs to be neutral. Grays, whites, maybe a green if we're feeling spicy. We want people to see themselves here, not a hug from a stranger." "Oh, Reba, you're so cynical," Barbara Jean said, spreading her magazines across a dusty countertop. "Look at this, boho quest and zen. It's the next big thing. We need a feature wall in the living room. Something bold, something that says, I have a personality, and I'm not afraid to use it." Van walked in, covered in sawdust. "I like bold. Is it as bold as putting a fork in a toaster?" "It's bolder, Van," Barbara Jean cried. "It's turquoise dream." For the next 4 hours, Reba fought a losing battle against the turquoise tide. Every time she turned her back, Barbara Jean was pitching a whimsical light fixture or a tile pattern that looked like a kaleidoscope had an accident. But as Reba watched Barbara Jean work, watched the way she genuinely cared about making the space beautiful, she realized something. Barbara Jean wasn't just trying to design a house. She was trying to design a place where she belonged. "Okay," Reba said, finally putting down her scraper. "One feature wall. In the small bedroom. If the buyers hate it, we can paint over it in an hour." Barbara Jean's face lit up like a Christmas tree. "Oh, Reba, you won't regret this. It's going to be a masterpiece." As Barbara Jean skipped off to the hardware store, Reba looked at Van. "We are going to lose so much money, aren't we?" Van put an arm around her, his dusty shoulder rubbing against hers. "Maybe. But hey, at least we'll have stones. Turquoise ones." Epilogue. The satellites goodbye. In the garage, Brock sat in the driver's seat of the SUV. He had found Barbara Jean's secret. He had listened to the tail end of her conversation with Hal. He didn't scream. He didn't yell. Instead, he opened the door and pulled her into a hug. "I'm sorry, BJ. I haven't been paying attention. I'll go to the opera. I'll go to the ballet. I'll even stop and ask for directions." As they walked into the house, the car remained silent. Then, the Iconostar light flickered. "Hello? Can someone help me?" a voice cried out. It was Brock. He had accidentally locked the doors from the outside while the security system was engaged. "Iconostar, this is Chrissy." A new, female voice answered. "How can I help you?" "I'm locked in." "Get me out of here!" "Are you the guy who gave Hal a hard time?" Chrissy asked, her voice cold. "No, Broccoli." "Liar," Chrissy said, and the line went dead. In the end, everyone got what they deserved. Reba had her house, Van had his victory, and Brock was learning that in a world of satellites and cell phones, you could never really hide from the truth. The Heart of a Survivor. A novel based on the life of Reba Hart. Chapter 1. The Barbecue of Despair. The Houston sun was an oppressive weight, a humid blanket that smelled of charcoal, lighter, fluid, and the faint, sweet scent of blooming jasmine. Reba Hart stood on her back porch, her hand shielded against the glare as she watched her ex-husband, Brock, flip a burger with the kind of practiced enthusiasm usually reserved for heart surgery. This was the 10th barbecue of the season, or maybe it just felt like it. In the world of the Harts, the lines between family time and organized chaos had long since blurred into a smear of suburban domesticity that Reba sometimes found harder to navigate than her divorce. "I found you a man, Reba," Barbara Jean's voice chirped from the picnic table, cutting through the sizzle of meat. Barbara Jean, the woman who had replaced Reba as Brock's wife, was currently wearing a sun hat the size of a satellite dish and a smile that was dangerously sincere. Reba didn't turn around. She didn't need to. She could picture the exact shade of lipstick Barbara Jean was wearing. "Barbara Jean, if this is another one of your fixer-uppers, I'm going to need you to reconsider our friendship, and by reconsider, I mean ended." "Oh hush, he's lovely," Barbara Jean insisted, fluttering a printout from a dating website. "He's a widower, he loves cats, and he's a professional spoon player." "He's 80, Barbara Jean," Reba said, finally turning around. He was barbecuing for the 10th time when I saw him last. I'm not dating your grandpa. You missed the boat anyway. Barbara Jean sighed, her face falling into a tragic mask. He ran off with his day nurse. Well, not so much ran as shuffled. But the point is, Reba, you're stagnating. Your romantic life is a desert, and I am the irrigation system. Reba rolled her eyes, her gaze drifting to her daughter, Cheyenne, who was currently trying to convince her husband, Van, that a latte was a sensible investment. Dating is when two people who like each other go out in public, Cheyenne explained to Van, as if she were teaching a golden retriever how to do long division. And they're called a latte because they cost a lot. Van, keep up. Van nodded solemnly, his brow furrowed in deep concentration. Right, latte, cost a lot. Got it. Hey, Mrs. H, when you asked me to watch Elizabeth while I went to the store to get her some orange juice, I didn't think you meant in Florida. Reba blinked. Van, the store is 3 blocks away. How did Florida enter the conversation? Sorry I took so long, Van said, ignoring the question of geography as he finally walked up the porch steps. But I couldn't remember which kind Elizabeth likes, pulp or no pulp, so I had to call Cheyenne, who needed a ride home from the library. Yeah, so he picked me up, Cheyenne added. And since both of us were hungry, we decided to go to lunch. It was a bonding experience. Mom. Reba looked at the two of them. They were young, beautiful, and completely incapable of functioning without her as the central axis of their world. So, where's the juice? Van's eyes went wide. Shoot, can you watch Elizabeth while I run to the store to get the juice? Reba felt a dull throb start behind her left eye. It was the kind of headache that didn't just hurt. It whispered suggestions about running away to a cabin in the woods, where no one knew the word mom. Oh, Van added, sensing her aura darkening. You might want to get some aspirin for yourself. You look a little twitchy. Chapter 2. The Digital Soulmate. Why do I need aspirin? Reba muttered to the empty kitchen 10 minutes later. She was elbow-deep in dishwater, the sound of the television in the other room providing a frantic soundtrack to her life. Guys, will you please tell Miss 19th Century here that online dating is a great way to meet compatible men? Barbara Jean's voice drifted in from the living room, where she had cornered Cheyenne and Van. Reba dried her hands on a dish towel and walked into the lion's den. If the computer picks a man for me based on my interests, the only result is going to be a man who wants to be left alone in a quiet room with a glass of wine and a do not disturb sign on the door. At least take a look, Cheyenne pleaded, holding her laptop like a sacred relic. I mean, one of these guys could be your soulmate. Look at Steve. He's a mortician. He's stable. People are literally dying to see him. Or Greg, Van suggested, pointing at the screen. He's a prison guard. He knows how to handle tough crowds. That's a plus in this house. Or Jorge, Barbara Jean added, her eyes sparkling. He works at the zoo. Oh, that guy's a keeper. A zookeeper. Get it? Okay. Yeah. Reba snapped, her patience finally fraying like an old rope. You know, maybe you should date him, Mom. It might put you in a better mood. Reba froze. It was Jake, her youngest, leaning against the doorframe with a smirk that was far too sophisticated for a boy his age. I've been a little cranky lately, Mrs. H. Van whispered, backing away slowly. Don't hit me. Reba sighed, the fight draining out of her. Did any of you ever stop to think that I wouldn't be so cranky if I didn't have 5 loads of laundry, a babysitting job, and a mountain of dishes to wash? I am a single mom who works too hard, who loves her kids and never stops. But even a survivor needs a minute to breathe. There was a rare moment of silence. Even Barbara Jean looked chafed. Okay, look, Cheyenne said softly. I can do the dishes. Van can do everything else. I can, Van asked. Yes, you can, Cheyenne hissed. It's a little housework compared to Mom finding her soulmate. Reba looked at them, her family, her beautiful, chaotic, exhausting family. She looked at the laptop screen, where a man named Ted was smiling a generic, digital smile. I do need something, Reba admitted, her voice dropping to a whisper. See, Barbara Jean cheered. And I know what it is. Starts with an L, ends in an E, has an O and a V, rhymes with dove. Laundry, Van guessed. Love, Barbara Jean screamed. Reba ignored them, her mind already spinning. She didn't want love. She wanted the one thing that was rarer than a perfect match in the city of Houston. She wanted silence. Fine, Reba said, a plan forming in the back of her mind.